In today's world, we are increasingly dependent on technology. Our business and personal lives rely on it, but as you've probably noticed, it's unreliable. Our computers are slow, so we end up squinting at smartphones and tablets. The jokers we pay to fix our stuff have no clue what they're doing. We live in constant fear that something's going to happen to our personal data. So we're scared into paying for fake protection that proves useless when disaster strikes. Update attacks, fake Wi-Fi, cloud control, intelligent, successful people feel intimidated by the chaos and think it's somehow their fault. If they only knew what the industry was doing to them, they'd get torches and pitchforks. If only we had someone to explain it all in plain English so we can start protecting ourselves. Oh wait, we do! It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast with your host, Mark Anthony Arena.
From the Wallace Memorial microphone in my living room overlooking the Can of Worms in downtown Rochester, New York, this is the Computer Exorcist Podcast. So happy you have joined us today, Mark Anthony Arena, concluding the second half of our interview with Nevin Hira, who's here to explain to us the details of the Indian caste system and how it relates to technology. So, where were we? We were talking about this article from Bloomberg called How Big Tech is Importing India's Caste Legacy to Silicon Valley. I'm going to continue reading from that and get your opinion. Another Dalit named Akshat said in his first year at IIT Kanpur, he refused to reveal his rank.
Okay.
It got out anyway, and soon seniors began stopping him to grill him on his engineering knowledge. Okay, making sure that he actually earned his way in. He also found himself left out of study groups, dinners, and celebrations. And I was let out of, or I was left out of celebrations too until I became cool. He struggled academically, falling into a vicious cycle that led to his expulsion. He now works as a journalist at a magazine in New Delhi. So I guess that's what happens if you fail out of an IIT, you become a journalist. That explains a lot. Many of the schools have appointed liaison officers to look into caste discrimination on campus. The IITs are a microcosm of Indian society. Agrata got into school through a quota system for other backwards classes, or OBCs, historically oppressed groups that aren't scheduled castes or tribes. So it's just other minority groups, correct?
That's what it sounds like.
All right, that led to her current job at an Australian tech company. Oh, okay, so it was easier for her than the Dalit friends that she had, but I guess she still graduated and went to an Australian tech company. Lower caste students were barely half as likely to get jobs as general pool students. Okay, so even if you make it through the IIT, now you got to go to the job world. Researchers attributed the difference to a divide between Dalit and non-Dalit students in the soft skills and social capital, right? And what do we mean by soft skills? Curiosity, leadership, poise, or a competitive spirit. I'm going to tell you something. When I was toward the end of high school, right, as y'all know, and you'll know that when I was younger, I was all about everything electronics, right? I knew everything about every connector and every brand and everything. But I interviewed at Radio Shack, and the guy said, "Thanks anyways, we're all set." And I said, "This is my dream job. I know everything about all this stuff." And he ended up hiring people who were personable, but who had no idea about the technology. And that's what they wanted. You know, I could tell you everything about the product, but I wasn't personable and didn't have that leadership and that poise and the competitive spirit.
So, wow, how things have changed.
Awesome. You know, I attribute that to the college fraternity I was in, where they taught me how to do public speaking. Cisco Systems employees, one Cisco System employee who alleged he'd been discriminated against based on his caste. Now, American law protects workers from treatment based on race, sex, religion, and disability. But this is the first time that anyone had argued those protections should extend to Dalits. That's interesting, because our laws don't cover that and don't know anything about it. This unnamed employee had faced discrimination by 2 managers at Cisco who were upper caste. All right, so here they are. They all moved to California, and the managers still said, look, we're upper caste, we're higher caste than you, and we can still treat you as such. Cisco denied the charges. We have zero tolerance for discrimination. And look, I mean, it's not Cisco's fault. It's that individual's fault, right?
Correct,
And that's
yeah.
another problem I have with all these lawsuits is the organization wasn't at fault. It wasn't, I mean, sure, I'm sure there are times when that's the case, but this was an individual manager's fault. They should hold that manager responsible. So Cisco said, we thoroughly and fully investigated the employee's concerns and found that he was treated fairly, highly compensated, that's probably true, and afforded coveted projects. Cisco made an additional argument. Because caste isn't a protected category in the U.S. civil rights law, the allegations are immaterial. So, the Hindu American Foundation filed a declaration in support of Cisco. Though it vehemently opposes prejudice and discrimination, the state's case blatantly violates the rights of Hindu Americans. Now, why would they... I mean, maybe the manager was a member of the organization, so they wanted to defend him? I mean, that's interesting. Also, the Ambedkar International Center, a Dalit advocacy group, encouraged the court to acknowledge caste discrimination and set a precedent. American civil rights law has little experience with Indian caste system, but it's very familiar with the idea of caste. So they're, again, comparing. More than 250 tech workers had come forward in the wake of that Cisco suit to report incidents.
Wow.
Yeah, now that's interesting. It's like, oh, shoot, you know what? I've been going through this too. Hey, maybe I should speak up too. That's interesting. And look, as I always say, it's always about awareness, right? Just raise awareness and let it all come out into the light, and that's what you got to do. Companies have held town halls, instituted anti-harassment training. Well, I don't know how good that is. Now, Microsoft, whose CEO, Satya Nadella, is an Indian American, says it's received few complaints of caste bias. Okay. Another Indian American executive, Shantanu Narayan, has been CEO of Adobe since 2007.
Yeah.
That I didn't know. You knew him? Okay. He's from Hyderabad, and he said, we have not had any of those issues. So maybe Microsoft and Adobe are doing a good job about this because their leaders are aware of it. In Silicon Valley, another mini India is how they put it. When IIT Bombay tried in 2018 to establish a separate dining hall for meat eaters, because many in the upper caste are vegetarian, student groups protested.
Oh, it's complicated.
Well, we've got 20 minutes.
So basically, with the meat eating part, most Hindus are supposed to be vegetarian, but the way I read it was the top 3 castes follow their Hindu religion, and I'm not a Dalit caste myself, and I am a meat eater, so. But traditionally speaking, the reason Dalit caste were meat eaters, they just didn't have the means or the money to pick and choose what they ate.
Wow.
So when they couldn't get a hold of grains and they couldn't get a hold of lentils, but all of a sudden meat is available, well, then you eat the meat.
All right, that's interesting because I'm going to flip this over for a second. In ancient Greece and Israel and in ancient Mediterranean, it's people couldn't afford meat. It was used for special occasions,
Correct.
Right? When you say bring out the fatted calf or bring out the lamb, that's for a once or twice a year special occasion.
Right.
So it's the opposite connotation there. Wow.
Because Hinduism is based on no harm. Well, to eat meat, you're doing harm
To an animal.
So
That's interesting. So it's totally opposite origins and then opposite extrapolations from... Wow.
correct.
Okay, so that's why the upper castes don't eat meat. Really interesting. And of course, in our modern techie world, right, it's different. It's all industrialized world.
Yep.
Wow. All right. Yeah, what did you think about how Microsoft and Adobe, what do you think about them versus Cisco?
See, I have never felt any caste discrimination in my life.
Awesome.
So
that's
I don't
so
know
good.
too much about it, but I could understand that if I worked at a major corporation and there was somebody who was untouchable Dalit caste, and then you have some upper level managers, maybe even one single person who's very traditional in their thinking.
Yeah, and they've lived their whole life with the pattern.
Then they will say, oh, you are an untouchable. Forget the fact we are not in India. We are not pre-1950. We are in Silicon Valley, California.
In the 21st century,
in the 21st century,
world. Wow.
But they're just following that traditional thought along.
Wow. And you know what? I can put myself in the shoes of that employee, too, because think about if you worked so hard to get out of where you were, to go to Silicon Valley, and to achieve the American dream, right?
Imagine.
And then what if my elementary school bullies showed up at the door?
Right.
Like, hey, welcome, you're working for us now.
Right.
Like, just now, again, as we're talking, that popped into my head, right?
That's kind of the same thing, right? This is a person who's an untouchable. I think in the last episode I said someone wouldn't give them a dollar bill in their hand. They would throw it at them because they're an untouchable. Well, that person has graduated college in India, got on an Emirates flight and flew to San Francisco and is living in Silicon Valley, and still they're feeling the ancient traditional oppression, It's gotta be tough.
Yeah, absolutely. So I certainly can empathize. Wow, that's fascinating. Why don't we, up to you, do you think we have time? We've got about 15 minutes. Do you want to do a quick article?
Sure.
All right. Okay, our next article here. You having a good time?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Next article is from Joseph Chamberlain from Roundel Magazine, February of 2019. Because you can doesn't mean you should.
Good point.
I say that all the time. Not that electronics don't have their place in vehicles, but I do prefer mechanical systems. My continuing attraction to the BMW 2002 was that it was so mechanical, with direct connections for just about every function. Windows, locks, and if you move a heater lever, it worked a cable connected to a door, and if you moved the knob, it would adjust the vent. And a side note, my dad has a new Chevy Silverado. And so in those cases, right, you can repair it. It's right in front of your eyes, and if one of those cables is broken, you fix it, right? And my dad has a Silverado, and when he presses the four-way hazard button, nothing happens. And he says, what are we going to do? And I said, Dad, there is nothing at all that we can do because that button is connected to an evil circuit board with closed-source software. So there is nothing any of us can ever do to fix this car. You're done. And the guys at the repair shop aren't repairing things anymore. They're just replacing modules that came from a factory. So when the factory stops making those replacement modules, we're done.
Right.
Isn't that nuts? I mean, that really...
I just read something. It said, if you work on Tesla, you're not an auto mechanic. You're a computer programmer.
Well, yeah. You're replacing modules and you're programming something, right? And whenever you get an update attack, too bad for you, all of a sudden something else breaks.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point. So these mechanics who are out there who are incredibly talented mechanically, they're just left... They're left in the dust here, and they don't know what to do for you half the time. I mean, anytime he brings his truck in with it, he's had a whole slew of electrical problems with these cars, and they just say, I don't know, sorry, I feel bad for the mechanic, right? Because it's, hey, I used to be able to fix stuff with surety, and now it's, we'll drive it around for a while, and we'll see if we can, I don't know what to do, right?
Right.
It's so incredibly uncertain. So anyway, he says... In the past couple of weeks, I've had the occasion to go in and out of four-wheel drive in my 4 trucks. The 3 with electronic controls indicate with a light that I'm in four-wheel drive, but sometimes a certain amount of zigging and zagging is required. But there's absolutely no question with my mechanically, manually controlled truck. You move the lever, and I know what I'm in. So I'd been driving a rental Chevy Cruze for a while, and it had lots of electronics like keyless entry and start-stop, and a backup camera, and a tire pressure monitoring system. And it also nags me about checking the rear seat just in case I'm one of those brain-dead boogerheads who occasionally forgets that their offspring is in a car seat.
Right.
And that's insane. When I had that rental car a couple weeks ago, it would drive me bonkers every 5 seconds. Hey, did you forget someone in the back seat? Hey, you're stupid. What's wrong with you? How come you drove like that? Why don't you go ahead? The guy in front of you just drove away. Why don't you pull forward? It even said that. When you select reverse, the front door locks slam shut. And I don't mean with a refined Teutonic thunk, but a holy guacamole wham! Like a high-speed locking bolt, and it annoys the snot out of me. Put the car in park and go close to your garage door, and just about the time you get to the front of the car, the horn gives 3 rapid blasts. And my dad's truck does that. It goes... And I guess GM considers their drivers to be so dumb that they need to be reminded that they're walking away from an unlocked running vehicle.
Yeah.
And the rental Hyundai I had too, it did that, but it did a beep, 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 beep. So a differently annoying thing to remind me that I had walked out of my car to go check the mail or something. And I'm a perfectly normal adult. If I had any snot left in me, that action would have cleaned me out. The prevailing attitude is, with the advent of inexpensive electronics, if a function can be added by writing a few lines of code, why not? This can be annoying in so many ways. You know, if that function had to be done mechanically, there might be some serious consideration before implementing that. Although we keep hearing that the internal combustion engine is near death, it turns out that last year more innovations were created for internal combustion than for electric cars. Outside of Japan, only BMW holds more patents on electrification than on combustion. So as a BMW fan, what do you think?
It scares me. You know?
Uh-huh. This whole magazine, this whole Roundel magazine is every theme of every issue is always, hey, we love the old ones. They were reliable, they were mechanical, they beat the pants off everyone else in terms of innovation, and my gosh, what are these new ones? What is this garbage that they're coming out with? It criticizes me, and I'm a successful person who was able to be successful enough to buy a BMW, and now I'm being talked down to.
And I feel it. I have a 2017 X5 hybrid.
Yeah, how is it?
It is a BMW because it's got the BMW logo on it, and I bought it from the BMW dealership. But I don't know that anything about it is really BMW. Everything is electrical. It doesn't, I don't know. I have a tough time with it.
And that's, I mean, that one still to me feels like a BMW. It has the same font, the italic font on the speedometer and everything. But the new ones, next year's car.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Tom Plusinski is a BMW exec, and he always writes for this magazine, and I gotta find the article. I have it saved somewhere, and he said, hey, you don't like this year's model? Wait till next year. Then you'll appreciate this one.
Right, okay.
Which is sad, because it's admitting that, hey, our cars get worse every year, so if you don't like this one, you're gonna cling to this one when you see how bad next year's model is.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, that's...
It's scary to think the way technology is going when it interferes so much.
Right, and again, it all boils... Someone at some institute of technology needs to hear our message, right? I want to go to all these tech schools, and I want to tell them, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
You're coming up with stuff, and it all boils down to having a little modicum of self-control in your head. To say, I mean, I get it, right? What if you gave a kid a bazooka, right? And they're going around, wow, look what I just did, look what I just did. But yeah, you make explosions, which are fun, but then you're starting to hit houses here. You're taking this powerful technology that you have, and you don't realize that sometimes it can damage things.
Yep.
How's that? Okay, so do you want to read? I have some mini articles here in my thing. in my briefcase, and these are just little fake emails that I've received or people have sent to me they're scam emails.
Oh, sure. Let's look at them.
And so, folks, we're going to teach you how to detect a scam email while having a lot of laughs.
Okay.
These are really good. So this one here says, info@noblecommit.com. Your mailbox paused, even though it's an email that I received, so my mail is not paused, right? Does that, you get it? Like, technosophy.com, mails paused, and then there's a little hazard symbol. Mark, comma, all lowercase, right? Doesn't greet me by my Christian name. It just says Mark, comma, because all it's doing is it's taking the first part, because my email address is mark@technosophy. So it's just taking the first part of my email. So if it was like marina@technosophy, it would say marina, comma.
Right.
Right? They're extracting that and hoping that it happens to be something legible. Your technosophy.com email has 12 pending mails due to irregular clauses. Therefore, your mailbox has been temporarily paused. Please validate your mailbox below to release pending mails and temporary pause of your incoming mails. Thank you. Copyright technosophy.com mail support.
Quickly. Make sure you do it.
So number one, all right, it's the urgency. Number two, it's technosophy.com support. If I'm some employee, or if, 99% of small business owners have no clue who their email host is or their web host is. Luckily, I know that mine is Starnova and he's brilliant. But most people just look at that, oh, okay, Joe Blow Company mail support. Oh, okay, that must be me. Right? It's so easy to come in there. And finally, the most important thing, there's a giant link that says validate mailbox. I blame the tech industry for doing so many of these stupid things to us, where you get all these emails that say, oh, warning, you have to validate. So the bad guys come in knowing that we are already conditioned to obey this. Right? So if you see a giant validate mailbox, the industry hassles us so much, I better click here and validate. What does that even mean, validate? So that's insane. Here's one I got from my dad, forwarded me, and he said, what is this? So this is one of those, again, pay attention to who sent you the message. Pay attention to the sender's email address. Most of the time when people send something to me, I say, come on, look at the sender. And it's always cindyloohoo@hotmail.com, and then it's, impersonates PayPal. This one says, goodspeedagrantv@gmail. And the email is sent to billions of people, and we're just copied in on the email. That's another huge giveaway, right? It's sent to consumer 4566 and billions of other people, including us. You ready for this? Dear honest consumer. It says that your order for iSpace phone X Pro 128 gig, right? Do you have an iSpace phone?
I do.
iSpace phone, right? So it must be Apple, right? Is successfully, capital P, purchased from Beeline International, capital International, but not Beeline, through lowercase PayPal. Your space item will be ready to bold send after the complete procedure of dispatch. In case you need it earlier from the date, you need to make call with a valid reason, because we only provide the fast, capital fast, shipping in an emergency.
Oh.
So you look at it and you go, wow, I ordered an iPhone, huh? So either they're telling you can call us if you want faster shipping, or call us to dispute it, right? And again, this is classic. The first example of this was back in the early 2000s. Everyone would get an email and it would say eBay, and it wouldn't say your name. It would just say, dear user, congratulations, you spent $1,000 on a pink Motorola Razr, right? And then conveniently, click here to dispute, right? So, I didn't spend $1,000 on a pink Motorola Razr. So this one says, purchase date, September 7th, and then it says delivery date, tomorrow. Tomorrow. And then the product is iSpace phone space X. Cost is $498 USD. And paying procedure is auto renewal. All right, this is stupid because this is a one-time purchase product.
Right.
But they put auto renewal as if it's a McAfee or a website subscription or something, right? If you have any further concern, feel free to contact our, bold, accounts department and express your issues. And you can reach us on +1 805, etc. And so, of course, remember, folks, big tech hates you, and they will never put a phone number because they hate talking to people, and they do not want to spend the labor talking to you. Even if you buy something from a company, they don't even want to talk to you with a phone number. So they put a giant phone number with some of the numbers are in bold, and then it says reverence accounts department lowercase.
You gotta use common sense when you look at these emails. Common sense. I know they go after some elderly people, and I know they go after, all different groups and types of people, but for the most part, you have to use common sense when looking at these emails.
Absolutely, and it's so. And again, even you and I, right? When you and I read emails, bam, 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 we read through them and quickly delete them and read through them, right? And so they can even get us. It's like if you're going fast enough, even a pebble in the road can throw you off, right?
Right.
Like those world speed, land speed record champions, right? They run over a little pebble and the whole car flips over.
Yep.
How cool is that, right? All right, one last one here. This is a screenshot someone sent me from the revered website called V6LDDUXYZ.
Oh boy.
Oh, it sounds legit, right? And there's an Apple logo. Okay, well, if it's an Apple logo,
it must be Apple.
Must be Apple, right? Because people don't realize how easy it is to copy and paste an Apple logo.
Right.
When I taught classes at the local rec center, I would copy and paste the Chase logo, and I would create a basic website that impersonated Chase right before their eyes, and it would take me 7 minutes.
Right.
To prove to them that it's very easy to impersonate. Important notice, your device is currently infected with a Trojan virus, okay? It's an email, not a pop-up, right? Your phone's memory is already having 17% of damage. Prompt action is required, otherwise, the device will become defective, and all your data, including accounts, photos, and payment data, will be available to third parties?
Wow.
All right, immediately install the trusted free app from the App Store to remove the virus and secure your device. And then on the bottom there's a giant remove virus button, and then it says detected by Apple.
Scammers gotta try.
They gotta try. And again, most people are falling for it. Again, I blame my industry. Most computer guys say, well, it's because consumers are stupid. No, it's because we see messages just like this from Apple itself constantly, right? And it says it's already having 17% of damage. And again, action is required, and otherwise your device will become defective. Again, accounts, photos, and payment data. People are so scared. Oh no, my social security number is going to get out there. Someone's got a hold of my social security number. And it's just like what's happening in the news right now, right? Someone's going to break into the Treasury Department and take my social security.
So, Mark, when you see emails like this in your inbox, what do you think people should do?
It's a great question, actually. So, number one, it says install the trusted free app for viruses. Number one, virus scanners can never help anyone, and anytime you install something that claims to clean, especially your phone, it'll destroy the phone, take all your data, and then beg you for money, right? So it does the opposite. So a couple things I'll do. I don't bother responding to them because most of the time it's a no reply address. It's just a one-way address, and I don't want them knowing I'm alive. Never, ever, 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 ever click unsubscribe, because then they get revenge on you and they say, oh, this person's still alive, and then they sell your name to as many people as possible. So what I do personally is there is a report spam button, so just click report spam and don't click the unsubscribe option. But also, I use these as an example. I print them out and I warn my listeners and friends. So if you get one of these, please tell your friends. Don't necessarily forward it to them, but warn them. Hey everyone, especially if you have friends who are seniors, warn people, hey, there's a new thing coming out, just to let you know, it's going to say you have viruses, it's going to come from a random letter and number, right? They're going to change that website tomorrow. It won't be VL6LDDUXYZ tomorrow, but hey, it's coming from random letters and numbers. They claim they're Apple, they claim that they're going to help you, and that's the end of that.
Perfect.
Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I think we had a blast. And folks, if you want to fight the good fight and join the good side, becomeanexorcist.com to find out how you can earn a living by actually protecting people instead of foisting products and services on them that they don't need. We'll talk to you next week.